It was a cold winter afternoon with heavy thunderstorm, rain, and strong winds when Sunaina came into my office. I was a bit shocked at her appearance as she showed not a drop of water. She knocked the door of my cabin and walked in with my permission. She was probably in her late 20s. Curly dark hairs were quite attractive. She wore round spectacles with a bright red frame. She would probably be around 5'5". However, her heels made her 5'8". She was holding a file on top of which were a couple of loose papers. She looked quite nervous. Adding to her nervousness was the interiors of my cabin. The walls had pictures of demons and fiends and demons. Well, I suppose she didn't see them for the first time, but the ambience was created so as to give a gloomy environment. All the pictures hanging on the wall were cover pictures of my different books. The light in my cabin was dim too, and a background music, which would remind everyone of their scariest experience, intensified the environment. Well, her reaction was somewhat contradictory to the purpose of her visit. She came to with a number of stories she had penned down over the past few years. What contradicted this was that all her stories were horror stories or ghost stories. Writing a ghost stories and experiencing a vibe are quite different things. And maybe she just got the first taste of it. She had written 7 short stories and wishes to compile them into an anthology. So she is here. I told her to narrate the stories, one each day, and then I will decide whether we will publish her book or not. I ordered coffee for both of us, and she started with the story. The summary of the story read, a scriptwriter goes to an actor with a story narration, a horror film script. As the scriptwriter unfolds the story and describes various paranormal events taking place in the film, the surrounding becomes dreary. Strong wind starts blowing. Electric appliances starts blinking. The door and windows start banging. The actor calls for his servants and security, but no one responds. He gets up only to find everyone dead. He rushes outside and sees the dead body of the scriptwriter. He turns around. Dreadful, burnt face of the scriptwriter appeared in front of him, and he succumbed to unconsciousness immediately. I liked the story. Right from character building to plot twist, she built it up nicely. I shook hands with her and gave her an appointment a couple of days later for her second story narration. We shook hands and she bid adieu. Next day, with a cup of tea in my hand, I opened the newspaper early in the morning. There was news of an actor being involved in somewhat similar incident as Sunaina wrote in her stories. One section believed it to be a publicity stunt as next week his new movie was about to be released. The case was under investigation. Even though I could feel the resemblance of Sunaina's story with this incident, I thought it to be a mere coincidence. A couple of days later, she came to my office with her second story. Before she started, I asked her about the actor incident, very well knowing the answer anyone would give at that juncture. Coincidence. She started with her second story. The story can be summarized as: a policeman was after a serial killer for around 12 months then. One night he got a tip from an unknown caller regarding the killer. He rushed to the spot where he was being called. He entered a house which seemed to have been closed for ages. On entering, he found several pools of blood spilled over at different regions. Handprints and blood were also there at different places. Blood stains dipping from the walls have dried up midway. Spider webs had nearly covered all the exposed surfaces. As he moved round the house, he heard a noise from one of the adjacent rooms. Just as he opened the door to enter, a torso-less face hung down from the top. The face had cuts all over it. One side was completely burnt, probably with acid. The head was hanging in mid-air. The policeman had held his nerves till then, but he crumbled when the face opened the eyes and one eye fell out and was hanging near the cheeks. I liked the story. Very well written. It can serve as a perfect plot for a horror genre short film. I was happy with her visualization of the story. It seemed like she had the whole thing going on in her mind. We talked about the possibility of a short movie on it. She was delighted. She got appointment for her third story, shook hands and left for her home. Following Sunday, I asked Sunaina to come to my house for her third story narration, and she was there early morning. Sunaina was there waiting for me even before I woke up, so I decided to listen to her story before going through the newspaper. Usually, that's the first thing I do, but today was different. So she started her third story, which can be summarized as: a writer famous for his horror stories was sleeping with his wife when suddenly he woke up. He was feeling thirsty. He reached the kitchen and opened the fridge to take out water bottle. What he saw inside the fridge stupefied him. A dead body was there inside the fridge. Well, the scarier part was, all the parts were cut and separated out. All the limbs, the head, the torso were separated from each other. Blood trickled down from various parts. A stream of blood dropped to the floor of the refrigerator, then onto the floor of the house and embraced the writer's transfixed feet. I must admire the cruelty that runs through her mind to get into those visuals and pen down. I was happy with what I had heard already from her. I made up my mind to print the book, but didn't mention it to her. She was quite good at narration, and I wanted to hear her narrate the other stories too. It was a stormy night. After dinner, I spent some time reviewing some manuscripts and then went to bed with Neeti beside me. Neeti, my wife, worked for a law firm. It was around 3 in the night when I felt an urge for water. I woke up and opened the refrigerator, only to find the narration of Sunaina come true. The refrigerator had cut pieces of a dead body. I screamed without sound. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was transfixed there. I could feel the trickling drop of blood touching my feet. I tried to call Neeti, but it was just a soundless effort. The water bottle which I was holding dropped from my hand. And that probably drew the attention of Neeti. The water bottle which I was holding dropped from my hand. And that probably drew the attention of Neeti. She came running towards me and embraced me in her arms. She kept on asking me what had happened, and I just pointed out to the refrigerator. She looked into it and wasn't shocked even a bit. I wasn't looking there. I was hiding my face in her curtie. She took my face in her arms and said, "There is nothing in. Look." I just turned a little. From the corner of my eye, I looked inside the fridge. It was empty. All those petrifying visuals were gone. There were fruits and vegetables inside. I narrated her everything in a frightened manner. She shook me by my arms and said, "There is no Sunaina, Abhinav. Sunaina doesn't exist. Sunaina is just a character you have created in your stories. In real world, there is no Sunaina." "Then who came to narrate the story today morning?" I asked her, still trembling. "No one came to narrate the story, Abhinav. You were on your writing desk in the morning, writing the manuscript for your next book," she answered. "No, it can't be true. I have all her documents with me. I have her number. I'll call her," I said and reached for my phone. My shaky hands were finding it difficult to dial the number. Somehow I managed to. The phone rang, and along with it, Neeti's phone rang too. It was Neeti's number. I wasn't still convinced. Along with her, I rushed to my office. I took out the documents of Sunaina. The photographs in the documents were of Neeti. I showed her the address. She was about to explain something, but I was no ears to her. I held her hand and almost dragged her to the car. I drove to the address given in the documents. I was shocked when I reached the destination. It was my own farmhouse. I entered the house and found the manuscript Sunaina used to carry every time. I held up the manuscript showing Neeti that this is the manuscript from which Sunaina had been narrating the stories. She turned the pages and brought me to the first page and pointed to the writer's name, Abhinav Ghosh.